Here on Tel Yisrael, behind me, is remains of a palace from the times of the kings of Israel, from the times of Achav. There's really not much to see over there, but we have the hill over here itself where apparently the palace stood. Achav's winter palace, his summer palace was, and his main capital was in the Shomron, specifically Sebastia, the actual city Shomron, not just the region Shomron. Okay, but here behind me we have the Jezreel Valley, Emek Yisrael, and in fact you can even see where the eucalyptus trees are. That's Ein Yisrael. We're going to head over there to look into the story of Kerem Navot, the Vineyard of Navot. Wine press from the times of Tanakh was found on Tel Yisrael, between the place of the palace and the spring below. Finding a wine press on the same hill doesn't mean that necessarily that was Navot. In fact, there could be reason to believe that Navot's vineyard would have been closer to the spring itself, as we'll talk about. But either way, it is amazing to find it here, and it just shows if it was a place that was great for growing grapes, so then that's where you'd expect to find it. Perhaps there were other vineyards in the area as well. And this could help us to understand Achav's offer to Navot to begin with. By the spring of Israel, not far from Tel Yisrael, just a little bit below it. In fact, you often hear in the Psukim going down to the spring, going down to Kerem Navot, right? And that's because the Tel itself is higher up on the hill. And here, on the one hand, the spring is a great thing to have if you're planning on doing agriculture, right? It's a ready source of water for whatever you need it for. But here's the thing. When you look around at where we have vineyards, you can find them in the desert, you can find them on the mountains, and they don't have to be in the valleys. They can be on the slopes of the hills themselves, because they can survive there. In fact, sometimes they can even flourish there. As opposed to, if they're actually overwatered, that can be more of an issue, and it can come out too watery, the fruits. Either way, they definitely don't need their own spring. They do need good soil, and that we have throughout the valley here. Here, on the other hand, if we want to have a Gan Yarak, which means whether you want to call it a vegetable garden or a garden for greenery, so then you need a real ready source of water. Vineyard is not something that you can just grow anywhere, certainly not on the slopes of a hill, a place where you don't have a constant steady flow of water. And so a spring is the exact place where you would want to grow something like that. That being the case, if we're looking for where Kerem Navot could have been, it makes a lot of sense that it would be here by a spring, right at the foot of the mountain, right nearby Achav's winter palace on the hill of Tel Yisrael. But on the other hand, it's not actually the best place for a vineyard. And that's why when Achav wants to make a deal with him, he says, hey, listen, I'm going to give you a place that's better for a vineyard. And I don't really have another choice other than to plant my Gan Yarak right here. Okay, that's in parentheses, not in the pasuk itself, because he doesn't want to put his own problems in when he's trying to make a deal. Right, so he's trying to convince Navot, and he says, I'm going to give you a better place, or if you want, I'll give you money instead, whichever works for you. So for Navot, it could actually be better to have it on the hill slope, and if not better, then at least just as good, and maybe I'll give him a larger area. Either way, it'll work out better for him. And for Achav, he doesn't really have another choice. This is the only place where he can put it, or he cannot have it. But Navot refuses. Why? It's a good deal. You'll get something better, you'll get something that's worth more, maybe you could sell it later on, you can have a bigger field, whatever it is. Sounds worth it, right? Well, here's the thing. That's his nachala. That's the land that was given to him and to his fathers and to his father. That's his nachala. He's not giving it up for anything. This is his land. It's his heritage. And he wouldn't trade it for anywhere else in the world. And we do though see something interesting about Achav here, in that he doesn't just go ahead and grab it for himself. Izabel does do that. She has no problem with doing that, but she comes from a very different background. She comes from the Phoenicians, and there a king can do whatever he wants. Now here even, perhaps we also see something like that. When you look at Mishpat HaMelech, right in Sefer Shmuel, he says, look, this is exactly what's going to happen. A king has a right to do this to you. He can take your land. He can confiscate it. But even so, Malchei Yisrael, a Jewish king, even if he's from the northern kingdom, and Achav, he's not going to be he's not that kind of person. That's not our kind of leaders. He had his issues. Achav had issues, especially with regards to Ben Adam Makom, with regards to bringing in Avodah Zarah, Baal, marrying Gizela to begin with, and she really brought terrible, terrible influence into this kingdom. Here, he erred. He should have been more careful. He should have made sure what happened with Navot, and he certainly shouldn't have taken the land after he was killed after being falsely accused. So this is another great example of an opportunity to learn from the land, to connect with the land, and to be able to use it to experience what we learn on a whole new level.